Hey Sarah, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing so well. And to everyone watching, welcome to the Progress Over Power podcast. Today we have Sarah Nadia with us from the HearMe app. And Sarah, I'm so happy to have met you and connected with you. For all of our listeners, please give them a little bit of background as to, how you interact with the HearMe app, how you found it, and why you started with the HearMe app as a listener.
So I am a student and I'm studying psychology and social work in university. And I've always been a big mental health advocate. So I've been volunteering in the field a lot. And after my last volunteering experience ended, I was just looking for a new way to connect with people and support them. And I came across Hear Me, and I really loved it. So I decided to become a listener there.
Yeah, I have read awesome things about Hear Me. What do you love about it so much?
I think the biggest thing is just how real and authentic it is. You're really encouraged to be yourself and just show up the way you are, and um, you don't have to just put on a face or anything. You just, be your true self, and there's just always someone there to listen to you and just be there for you through whatever you're going through. And I think it's just amazing to know that you're really never alone.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. You're really never alone. So who do you go to? You sound like a professional listener. So when you need someone to hear you or to be heard, who do you turn to?
Honestly, the way Hear Me works is that, you can be a listener and a member at the same time. So there are times where I'll just, go on as a member, and just the fact that I feel so supported when I do that makes me want to give back even more. So that's something that I even do myself. And then I know that there are some struggles sometimes with, talking to friends and family, because, some things are just really personal, and so it's helpful to have that, a little bit of like some distance with someone that you don't maybe know as well, but that's just really there to listen. So that's honestly what I do, is I just go on as a member, and it's been a great experience for me so far.
Yeah, I like that. I haven't personally used Hear Me just yet, but I'm open, I'm honest. I have been to counseling sessions, and I love what you said about having someone who's like more removed from your situation to listen to what you're going through. For me, that's really meaningful.
For sure.
So, yeah, what's the most common challenge that people are going through when they come to Hear Me?
So we get like a whole range of them, to be honest. Right now, of course, a lot of people are coming with, the COVID-19 anxiety, things around that, and just loneliness, and, being stuck at home. There's a lot to deal with, with not having your usual routine. So that's been a big thing. But we get a whole range of different calls, related to school and relationships and just day-to-day stresses. So it really varies. Everybody just comes with something different, but there's always just someone there to really listen to whatever it is that you come with.
Yeah, I recently spoke to someone from a separate app called Cuddlist, or a website rather, and they were telling me about some of the anxieties or the depression that people come with, and they just want to have that human connection.
Mhm.
So, as a listener, what kind of responses do you give when people are like unloading their emotions to you?
I think the biggest thing there that we try and keep in mind is we're not like, there's only so much you can do for another person, and realistically, you can't exactly solve what it is they're feeling or make them feel better. But the one thing you can do is just make them feel like they're not alone and make them feel heard and understood. So our whole the way we work is really just, you know, hearing what the person is saying and reflecting that back to them, and just saying, wow, that sounds really hard. I understand, I can't imagine what you're going through right now, but you're not alone. So just really showing them that, you acknowledge that it's a tough time for them, but that, you're there for them to listen. And even though you might not be able to solve their problem or find a solution for them, that, they're able to kind of just get it off their chest and feel like, okay, maybe it's not such a big weight on my shoulders, because I can at least talk about it and someone understands me. So I think that's kind of what it reflects around. That's the biggest thing, is that we're just there to walk through it with them.
Those responses can be so important, even, if you're not on a professional app speaking to a listener or in an office speaking to a counselor. When a friend or a family member can just tell you that sounds like it's really difficult what you're going through, that statement of empathy so that they can feel like, oh my goodness, it's not just me. I love that. I agree. It's very powerful, even though it sounds like there's not really much thought behind it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of times we kind of overlook just what a little response like that can do, but it really goes a long way in making someone else just feel heard and understood.
Absolutely. It's like kindness, right? We think that
Exactly.
like holding the door open for someone is overrated or cliche or, oh, well, that doesn't really matter. They don't understand or they didn't notice my kind gesture. But words are the exact same. The little things like, you look beautiful today. I'm happy to see you. They still really hit home
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
so many. So, on a personal level, if we want someone else to feel comfortable with us as a friend or family member in their vulnerability, in a difficult time that they're going through. How can you make somebody comfortable to express themselves to you?
I think, and even just speaking from my personal experience, I think the biggest thing is just letting them know that you're not there to judge them. I think that's the biggest thing. Oftentimes people feel like, whatever it is they're going through, like there might be a bit of, shame there or guilt or whatever it is. And so those feelings are already there to begin with. So having someone else who's there to just say, you know what, it's okay to feel that way. I'm here for you regardless. Like that really just sets the ground and it just helps them feel more comfortable opening up to you, just knowing that, regardless of what they say, you'll be there to listen and without judging them or without making them feel a certain way for what they're going through or what they're feeling. So just that whole, yeah, just accept them as they are. I think that goes a long way.
What does that process look like? Does it start when the conversation is present, like you see someone going through something, or is that something that you have to set up beforehand, after? Like, how do you do that?
I think the most authentic way to do it is just as the conversation comes about. When someone shares something with you, again, like those little words of encouragement can really help them feel more comfortable in opening up. So just saying things like, "Wow, that sounds really difficult," and I want you to know that, whatever you tell me, like there's no judgment, and I'm just truly here to listen. And you know, um, I think just as you go through the conversation, there's just little reassurance things that you can say like that that'll help them realize like, okay, they're here because they truly care and they just want to listen and they're not here to, make me feel bad about how I'm feeling or anything like that.
Are these skills innate to people or can they be taught? I think sometimes we get into conversation or are looking for empathy from someone who genuinely might not care about what we're going through. How can the person on the other side, the person who might lack the listening skills, make the person still feel heard or that they're receiving empathy? Does it come from within? Can it be taught?
I personally think it can be taught. I know through my listening, I've developed like an even greater sense of empathy for people, and so I think like just with practice even, and um, the way I like to think about it is, empathy is really just putting yourself in someone's shoes, and so even as the listener, like, if you kind of put yourself in that person's shoes and say, what would I want someone to tell me if I was struggling and I needed someone to listen to me, and just thinking from that perspective, it kind of helps you give an idea of like what are the things I can say to reassure the person and to let them know that they can open up to me without feeling judged. Um, so I think yeah, it's really just a matter of thinking about what would I want someone else to tell me, and I think that with practice, you can just get even better and better at that.
What are your top tips for practicing? I want to start today.
um, Top tips for practicing. I think, one thing that I've found is just when I find myself in a conversation and I find myself, you know, automatically sometimes we end up judging the person, like even if it's in our head, even if it's a thought. So I think challenging those thoughts is a great way to start. Um, just, when you find yourself thinking a certain thing, just like, pause and just say, okay, like, this is probably a really hard situation for the person, and I definitely don't know all the details about what they're going through. And it took them a lot of courage to come here and open up and talk about it. So I think challenging that thinking right off the bat, and then really just saying those statements that are showing that empathy for the person can just help you like develop that over time, and just really refine those active listening skills that'll make the person feel supported.
So practicing questions where you can challenge yourself. So if you're judging them, why am I feeling this way? What are they really looking for from me? And then second, finding opportunity to practice those little statements like, it sounds really hard what you're going through. Thank you for sharing this with me. I hear you.
And you can even do that like in a day-to-day conversation. It doesn't have to be, like a, specific listening setting where you have someone that comes to you. Like even just in your daily interactions, when you speak of those like empathy statements, when you share that with people just in your conversations with other people, like it becomes more automatic eventually. And, then it comes more naturally when you're actually listening to someone.
That's cool. There's so many opportunities, it sounds like, to practice.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So why is listening important? I mean, I've been reading up a little bit about listening skills and the areas in which it can help you. What are those areas, and why is this a skill that's important?
It's almost like, in our lives today, like when someone asks us something or when we're having a conversation, we're always thinking about what am I going to say next? How am I going to respond to that, And I think with that, we're missing a very important part, which is just listening to what the person is saying and just taking as much out of that as you can. And so I think something like this, it just kind of forces you to focus on what is that person saying and how are they feeling, and just validating that really. And so I think it's honestly a very important part of like human connection, like just being there for the person and hearing them without the pressure of having to respond a certain way or, say something specific, like just listening to them. And that can go a long way in itself. Again, you can't always change what someone's feeling or give them a response that'll make them feel better, but just, making them know that I'm here to hear you and just be here for you, like it goes a long way in itself. So I definitely think it's a huge part of just, being there for other people.
You're so right. There's a saying like that, isn't there? Like listen, not to respond.
Oh yeah, probably, yeah.
Something like that. I really enjoy that. I'm going to find it and I'll put it at the end of the podcast. So how has being a listener on the HearMe app changed your perspective of human connection? What was your communication like before, and how has it developed now?
I think, honestly, the biggest thing for me, like I said, is I feel like I've developed an even greater sense of empathy for people. I know that, in our daily interactions with people, we kind of get lost in just, the day-to-day routines and just doing things and getting what we need to get done. And we've kind of lost that, like, the sense of just really being there for another person and just understanding what they're going through and how they feel. And I think even for me, like, I know that when I am there for someone in that way, like it makes me feel better. And I feel like, okay, I'm there for someone else. And, just knowing the impact that can have on someone else, it goes a long way for me. And so I think with Hear Me, it's just, especially in this crazy time right now, it allows us to connect with other people. And sometimes I feel on an even deeper level than in person and with face-to-face interactions, because someone is just really opening up to you with some of their hardest struggles, and you're just letting them know that it's okay to feel that way and just validating them and letting them know that they're not alone in that. And so, for me, the biggest thing is that I've developed a bigger sense of empathy for those people, and I feel like I'm able to really make them feel, less alone. And one of the most rewarding things is, when you're in a chat with a member and they say, and I tell them, I know I can't make you feel better, and I know I can't change the way you're feeling, but you'll always have a friend at Hear Me. And that in itself goes a long way. And again, the most rewarding feeling is when they leave saying, I actually feel a little bit better knowing that I'm not alone.
Those are some powerful statements. As you were speaking, I started thinking about the weight that you must feel as a listener when you are hearing about people's anxiety, their stresses, their means of depression or their reasons for depression, and saying something like, I know I can't change how you're feeling. That's therapeutic for them and for you, I imagine, right?
Yeah, it kind of takes that pressure off of you as a listener and almost the expectation or whatever it is with the member that, um, we can't realistically, there's nothing we can do to solve the anxiety or to make them feel less depressed, but just being there for them and listening to them, that in itself is a huge thing. You know, there's a lot of things we can do, like the little things that'll make someone slowly feel a little bit like better in some sense, like they're less alone and they feel heard and there's someone walking with them through those tough times. Um, and so letting them know that I can't solve that, but I can be here to walk with you through it, that like can definitely, you know, have a huge impact on them.
Even metaphysically, right? Sometimes we do just want that person next to us
Mm-hmm.
to hold our hand almost through a difficult time. We don't necessarily need to give them a solution, but they want to feel as if you're two friends walking through a park and they can just express themselves openly, freely, judgment free, as you mentioned earlier. And even though those statements are really powerful, like when I'm in a situation with a friend or family member going through a tough time, it's a fault of mine. I typically just go straight to the solution because I want to make it better for them and I want them to see all of the opportunity. But then it weighs back on me like, did I do something wrong? Should I have said something differently? So how do you and how could anyone relieve themselves of those pressures when a statement as simple as, I know I can't change your feelings, when it doesn't get through to us?
I think just keeping in mind that, you know, even if you're not um, saying anything, or even if you're not, um, even if you don't think you're doing anything that would benefit the other person, just knowing that your presence makes a big difference. And just having someone else to walk with you through those tough times, like for the member or for anyone who's struggling, like that's a big thing, just that thought that, okay, I really am not alone. If I need someone, there is someone there to talk to me and just hear what I'm going through. So I think just constantly reminding yourself that even if you don't feel it and even if it doesn't seem like it, just being there in itself goes a long way for someone else.
That changed my life. Like your presence is valuable to somebody else. That
Yeah,
means it's therapeutic on both ends.
it definitely
Again,
is. Yeah.
wow. Are there ever moments where even though you're doing everything quote unquote right as a listener, as a friend, or as a family member, someone still just gets upset with you, maybe? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, and the way I think of it is, I've always learned that anger is a secondary emotion. And when someone is going through a lot, sometimes that anger comes out in different ways and through people that it's not meant to be. And so there are times, yeah, where sometimes you'll be speaking to someone and they're having a really rough time and, maybe they need more support than we can offer, or maybe there's just a lot going on for them. And so it's kind of a natural response. But the way that I think of that is that, what is causing that anger? Why are they feeling that way? And sometimes even digging deeper into that if you feel it's right. And if, you can feel like, okay, maybe the member needs a little bit more support in that sense. That helps. Like personally, I've experienced that helps. Just kind of letting them know that, it sounds like you're going through a really rough time right now, but I'm here for you in whatever way I can be. And, even just asking them, like, how can I best support you today? That in itself helps because it just lets them know that you truly do care and that even though they are going through a rough time, that, you're going to be there to listen to them and to hear them.
That's challenging on the listener end. If someone is taking out their anger, their frustration on you, to come back with kindness and to say, you're going through a difficult time, but I'm still going to be here from you. We're all human. I think we've all been on both ends of this kind of conversation. For the person who needs to feel heard or is going through that difficult time, how could they revisit that situation the next time and make it better for the person who's trying to provide them support?
I think honestly, just taking some time even to just, um, just reflect back on the experience that you had. And it's hard when you're going through a rough time to see that. But if you're looking back on the conversation you had, and even if in the moment you were really upset about something and, you took out your anger on the person or whatnot, and like at the end of the conversation, if you look back and it was kind of helpful, like, it kind of it kind of encourages them to reach out again, and to try having another chat with another listener. And that's the other thing is, as a listener, it can be hard to come back with kindness sometimes when someone is really feeling a lot, and maybe you don't feel like you're the best fit with them, and that's completely fine. Again, not everybody is going to connect with each other, and not everybody's compatible with each other in that sense. And so it's always okay to set that boundary and say, perhaps I'm not the best listener to chat about this right now, but there always is someone for you at Hear Me, and you can always, request another chat and speak with another listener. So that's one thing that I find that's really great is you never need to stay in a chat that makes you feel uncomfortable, because there always is someone else that can help as well. And so that's one thing that's really encouraged, is that to set your boundaries. And if you feel like something is out of what you can handle, like, it's okay, because there's always another listener who's there to help.
And this service is 24/7. There's always a listener available. That's incredible. And I love what you said about not everyone is meant to connect. So would I, if I am not connecting with one listener, be able to find another one to meet my needs immediately if I'm feeling really desperate? And not to ask you too many questions at once, but how do you know the difference between when you need a service like Hear Me versus professional counseling?
So it is 24/7. You can connect with a listener at literally any time of the day, any hour. There's always someone there, to be with you. And if you don't connect with one listener, you can always request again, and your chat will get picked up by someone else. And on the other hand, if you do connect with someone, you can set up a dedicated chat with them to continue speaking with them, so that, when you find someone that you feel truly heard by and understood, you can continue chatting with them, because the way it works is that it's a live session. And so once that ends, you're not, unless you set up a dedicated chat, that's kind of the end of that. And so when you find someone that you really connect with, you can set that up so that you can continue speaking with them, and just continue that conversation with them. But sorry, what was your other question?
How do you know when you need a service like Hear Me versus professional counseling?
So the big Hear Me motto is, not everyone needs therapy, but everyone needs someone to talk to. And I think that's a good answer for that, is that, maybe there are some people that need therapy services, that need some more professional counseling help. But everybody needs someone to talk to in general, whether that's for something they're going through, or just because they're lonely, or because they want a friend to talk to. So Hear Me is really for everyone. Just if you need someone to talk to, which everybody always needs someone to talk to, then Hear Me is for you.
What's next for you, Sarah? Because you have such a big heart, and taking these steps to become a listener and be a support system for other people, that's a big deal. You're touching a lot of lives. What do you want to come from all of this? What's your end game?
So I'm honestly very passionate about mental health and, mental well-being, and just being there for others. And so my hope is that, of all this volunteering that I'm doing in the field, like, one day I do want to have a career in the field of mental health and just really give back to other people, because I know that when I've had tough times and when I was struggling, there was always someone there for me. And so I want to be able to give back and make sure that when someone's having a rough time, that they never feel alone. And so that's really my goal, is to just whatever it looks like in the future is to just be there for people. After I finish studying in university, I want to find a career, or maybe even make a career that allows me to be there for other people and to just support them and let them know that they're not alone through whatever they're going through.
You're a great testament to what can be accomplished while you're still in the university stages and developing yourself and really seeking opportunity to grow as a human, right? So if there's anything that you want to leave people with about mental health or listening skills, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing that I always try to remember is that whole thing about your presence makes a big difference. Even if you don't notice it, just being there for someone goes a long way. And, you don't know the impact that you have on someone else, and hearing those words that, I actually feel a little bit better after talking. Thank you. That's why I do all of this, is because I know, and from my personal experience when I was reaching out for support, that being there for someone can go a long way in their lives.
I'm so happy I got to connect with you. I feel a little bit brighter and like my heart grew at least one size bigger just from talking to you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I would love to have you again. If people want to learn more about you, more about the HearMe app, or just connect with you personally, where can they find you?
So for the HearMe app, you can check out the website at www.hearme.app, and you can download the app there as well. And you can also check out the HearMe social media. So their Instagram and Twitter is HearMe_app, and their Facebook page is app.hearme. And you can connect with thousands of other listeners like me and many other people that are just there to listen to you.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah. You are a bright light in our world, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you so much.